Friday morning, November 22nd. It's 8:45 and the weather is misty.
I was a reporter for the Dallas Times-Herald, which was the afternoon newspaper in Dallas. My assignment that day was to cover the arrival of the Kennedys at Dallas Love Field and stay there until they left and cover the departure. There were a couple of other reporters that had similar assignments, and I'd already agreed that, maybe we'll have some lunch together in the restaurant at the terminal building in Love Field.
The presidential car moving out.
The minute I walked into the restaurant, this waitress came. She was screaming and crying and said, "They shot Kennedy, Conley too."
It appears as though something has happened in the motorcade route. Something, I repeat, has happened in the motorcade route.
Well, I had been up very late the night before because I was the night police reporter at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and I didn't get off till 3 o'clock in the morning. So I was asleep when this happened the next day in Dallas. My brother came in, woke me up, said, "You better get to the office. The president's been shot."
I have just talked to Father Oscar Hubert of the Holy Trinity Catholic Church. He and another priest tell me that the pair of men have just administered the last rites of the Catholic Church to President Kennedy. President Kennedy has been assassinated. It's official now. The president is dead.
Before the Kennedys arrived, I was testing the telephone with a rewrite man. He was in the sitting room downtown, and he said, "By the way, are they going to have the bubble top up on the presidential limousine?" Now, the bubble top was, they called it the bubble top. It was made out of plexiglass, 1/4 inch thick. It was not bulletproof. It was 6 pieces of plexiglass put together with fasteners, with snaps. And, but it was strictly a weather thing. And Kennedy, it was very well known that Kennedy had said, "I do not want that bubble top up of it, ever."
I was in a complete fog, got dressed quickly, went down to the paper, just went up to the city desk and was just trying to help them answer the phones. It was total bedlam, as you might imagine. A woman called in on the phone and said, "Is there anybody there who can give me a ride to Dallas?" And I said, "Well, lady, we're not running a taxi here, and besides, the president's been shot." And she said, "Yes, I heard it on the radio. I think my son is the one that they have arrested." And it was Lee Harvey Oswald's mother. She lived out on the west side of Fort Worth. I wrote down her address. Another reporter and I went out to that address. There she stood on the curb. She got in the back seat with me. He drove, and I interviewed her on the way to Dallas.
It was definitely the president's car.
At midnight that night, it was a chaotic scene in the police station, unlike anything I had ever witnessed before or will ever witness again. And we were all in in a cauldron, I guess you would call it, of a kind of a cross collision of emotions. First was just absolute disbelief. I mean, did it really happen? Was President Kennedy really shot and killed here today in our town, in Dallas?
We were herded into this holding room off the jail, and they were going to bring him down and let him talk to his mother. And finally, a guy standing over in the corner said, "Well, who are you?" And I said, "What?" And he said, "Are you a reporter?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And he said, "Well, son, you get out of here." He said, "You get out of here right now." So that was the end of the story. I always say it's the biggest interview I almost got but didn't, but it remains to this day one of the great adventures of my life.
What I learned on that day, I have carried with me every day as a working journalist since 50 years since, the entire 50 years since, just the knowledge of how fragile things are. That at any given moment, somebody, a lone gunman, can take a rifle, get off 3 rounds in 15 seconds, change the course of history. And if it could happen then, it could happen again, and again, and again, and again.
What I think people today don't really understand is how totally stunned we were. We've had many violent events since that day, but that was really the first time that anything like that had happened in the life of people who were alive when it happened. We didn't know what it meant. We didn't know if it was the beginning of World War III. We just didn't know what to make of it. And it was this kind of terror hung over the whole thing, like it did later for many of us at 9/11. What happened? Why? What's this all about? It was a very, very difficult time.